So tonight, The Crow remake drops in theaters. Not particularly optimistic about that one. I am curious, but not thinking it's going to be particularly good since they didn't do any press screenings for it. But more importantly, this provides an opportunity to talk about the original film. So when it comes to this movie, you know, I grew up, my formative years were the 90s. So this is a film I watched way back in the day, had the soundtrack for it. I've seen it many times across the decades. And while it's never been one of those movies that I've loved as much as a lot of other people have loved, it's a movie that I've always respected. And that respect has probably only grown with time. When you have a movie that you can look back on 30 years later and it stood the test of time as being distinct and unique. And in a genre, action revenge thrillers, it was able to stand out as the one people remember, the one that influenced a bunch of films, that did something distinct and unique with the full production of the film. And of course, it's a movie that's kind of becomes mythologized because Brandon Lee died making the film. The movie that would go on to solidify his legacy and finally kind of give him an iconic, memorable role that meant so much to so many people. He died before they even finished making the movie. While they were making the movie, if you don't know, he was shot and killed on set because of an accident involving how the prop gun was handled. And an actor in the movie pulled the trigger and killed Brandon Lee. And so it's just one of the most tragic stories in Hollywood history. And just someone right as they were breaking out with this film, their life was ended. And of course, that's compounded by the fact that he was the son of Bruce Lee, who also died before his big breakout film was released in the United States. Bruce Lee was globally famous, and his big Hollywood breakout film was Enter the Dragon, and he died before it came out. And then the same thing essentially happened to his son. And that creates this aura around the film. That in particular, when you have a movie that is about death and loss, and the lead character, the starting event, the first thing that happens in the movie is the lead character is killed, and the actor that plays that person dies making the movie. There's just something very eerie about that just adds this extra layer of reality to this fantasy revenge tale. That you can never escape that. You watch the movie, and as soon as you know that, it makes the movie feel different, but they also delivered a very effective film. With all that said, let's dive into our review. As I mentioned before, this is a movie that has stood the test of time and had such a distinct, unique style, vibe, aesthetic to the film, and really that's what elevated the film. If you read just a one-paragraph summary of the plot, it feels fairly standard for the time period. It has a little bit of a lore to it. A crow brings someone back a year after their murder to seek revenge. Okay, the crow lore is a little interesting and different in there. And then from there, you just kind of have a guy seeks vengeance on the people that murdered him and murder and raped his fiance. Straightforward, simple. But everything is elevated through the atmosphere that's created, this vibe where this just kind of turns into the goth revenge classic, where the Proyas, the director, absolutely commits to a very specific aesthetic and vibe throughout the entire movie. The whole thing takes place at night, and the lighting is just designed. Everything is dimly lit. It's a dark film thematically, and it's a dark film in how it's shot. There's so many things that are in the shadows and the silhouettes, but also as dark as it is, you can always see everything that you need to see. It's just right on that line, but between like what's going on here and, oh, this is really cool. It doesn't go too far. It always sticks right in that realm to where it has this distinct vibe to it. And then just the environments. Everything feels so gritty and real and tactile. So much of the movie is just wet. It's raining. When he runs across a roof, rain or water is spraying everywhere. If he rolls across something, water sprays off of his back. You just feel like you're in a place that's grimy and dirty. And there's always fog in the background. There's leaves on the ground. And so it just gives off this vibe like you're in a very real place that is dark and evil and corrupt from top to bottom. And as much as everything feels so just tangible and real, it also has this dreamlike quality to it. And from the very beginning of the movie, it starts off with this shot swooping into the city. And the broad shots of the city are done with these kind of miniatures and, you know, matte paintings and stuff like that don't feel real, but they don't feel. They provide like this dreamlike sense to it, like you're floating through something that's not quite right, but also that feels like you could touch it. It's real looking, but also off looking, which that blend of this gritty, grounded, tactile reality with this dreamlike feel to it is what it's going for. Put those together, what do you get? You get a nightmare that you're stuck in, this dark nightmare about getting revenge and seeking vengeance. And movies are not made like this anymore, where if you did the same movie like this now, all of these city shots would be done in CGI, or they'd be done with a drone shot or something like that. And it's just not the same. When you see a miniature, like, you know that you're not looking at a real city, but it's not also entirely obvious what exactly is off about it. And that's what gives it that dreamlike feel. It's so close to real, but not quite. Even in the ways that when you do like one of these wide shots of miniature cities, you can't see the stuff off in the distance beyond the city. And so it just kind of disappears into darkness. The way that dreams have this sense in which you can feel the reality around you, but there's only so much reality there, and it cuts off. So it's always off. And that's what this movie provides. It feels so much in a real existing space, but also does not feel like the reality that we live in. Another thing it's able to do really nicely is just balance this tone to where, at its core, it's bleak, it's brooding. It starts off with a rape murder and a cop trying to like comfort a little girl by lying to her, like, man, I think maybe they're going to be okay, but it's a lie. Everybody knows it's a lie, but you're just trying to make the best of this bad situation. And then from there, it's this guy coming back, dealing with this horrible loss and seeking vengeance. It's dark. It also manages to have just enough humor and quirkiness. Nothing that breaks the tone, nothing that throws it entirely off, but just enough to ease the tension, to break the tension, but not break the tone. So you can have that little moments that make them human, where Eric Draven, as much as he is this returning angel of death, seeking vengeance, he's still Eric Draven. His personality is still present. He's a person. He's not just a force of nature getting revenge. There's the force of nature side to the character, but there's also the person that's still there, that cared about a little girl, that loved a woman, and that has a sense of humor, that messes around with people a little bit and makes little jokes. Whether when he shows up in Ernie Hudson's apartment and scares him, when he's like, you still have your hat on. Just little lines that are the way you would joke to a friend. And that's the way that this movie plays around with some of these little moments that it has. Another thing you got to talk about in here is the stylized action. And in the mid-90s is where you started to see Hollywood kind of change the way that they shot action to be a little bit more dynamic, starting to learn from what was going on in Hong Kong with what John Woo was doing with shootouts, and then of course what Jackie Chan and others were doing with martial arts. Of course, Brandon Lee was inspired by Bruce Lee's father. He also is a big fan of Jackie Chan that he brought into the way that he would choreograph fights. Now, this is not a martial arts movie, so it's not really in the Jackie Chan style, but there is more of a flair and creativity to the way the action is shot. Multiple pistols, the way the camera moves. If you've seen John Woo movies from the late 80s or like Hard Boiled from right before when this movie came out, and compare it to what Hollywood was doing at the time, and then see what this movie's doing, you can see that those influences kind of coming in, that more like The Matrix 5 years after this really went mainstream with the Hong Kong influence. But movies like this, Blade, and a few others, where we started to see that those influences seeping over into Hollywood and action getting more interesting and exciting. And this is one of those films. But like, there's a number of things that The Matrix popularized that came from Proyas's movies that came before The Matrix. This and Dark City. Like certain things with the goth aesthetic, the soundtrack, the trench coats, and then with Dark City, a number of things about this reality that's not quite real, the way that certain images are shot, all this stuff that is popularized by The Matrix. The director of this movie did beforehand, like paved the way, like started the process, and then the Wachowskis did the very mainstream version of it. So maybe if you have not seen this movie before and you're like curious about the new one or whatever, like, and you're thinking about watching this one and you've seen The Matrix, watch this in the mindset that this influenced so much of where The Matrix ended up going, or was pulling from the same influences that led to The Matrix. I don't know how much the Wachowskis were specifically inspired by Dark City and this film, which I'm sure they were, but they certainly were pulling from the same external influences and just did the very popular version of that. Of course, you've got to talk about a couple performances in here. Brandon Lee being the key one here of this is the performance that he's known for. As someone that likes martial arts action thrillers, I've seen Rapid Fire many times, and Big Showdown in Little Tokyo, his movie did with Dolph Lundgren and Tia Carrera. And so he has other movies, but they were much more just kind of generic throwaway films of their genre films. And then finally he got this movie that transcended its genre and became the epitome of 90s goth action revenge thriller. Like, it's the movie you think of when you think of that specific space. It's the one that people still watch and talk about. And he plays this character that's just very haunting. And especially because we have the sequels that have come out thus far, and even the new one that's about to come out, we have points of reference for how people have tried to do this type of character, this type of look, and it goes horribly wrong. You just watch the sequels, and it's never quite right. The balance isn't like the way to play this person that still has their personality, but also is this force brought back to life. He's the one that balanced it and could have both sides to it, the quirkiness and the brooding darkness to it. He could pull both of those off. And of course, he was a great stunt performer, so he could do the action and be believable in it. And so much of that is why people, feel like the remake is in poor taste. You have the version that you just can't imagine anyone making better. It's like you did it. You pulled it off. We've seen these sequels where they failed at trying to do it, and we have this remake that feels like, once again, they're getting it totally wrong. And you had someone that they didn't choose to do this, but literally gave their life to play Eric Draven. That wasn't what he was intending to do, obviously, but he did. That's what happened. And it worked, and it's beloved. And should you go back and keep playing with it? Should you go back and why not just tell a different story? Which the sequels did. They took different characters. They weren't Eric Draven. It feels off. And some of that is that you kind of create this sense to which you get this otherly quality when someone literally dies making a movie. Same with kind of the Heath Ledger and the Joker. There's just this aura that surrounds it because there's so much true tragedy built into the reality of the creation of that art. And in this case, it's a character, Eric Draven, that was pulled off so well. And that is his legacy. And so why are we doing Eric Draven again? I get it. I'm not as bothered by it as some are, but I do get it. And final one, you got to talk. Well, a couple of others you want to talk on the performances here is Ernie Hudson. Just always such a solid performer. And in the case of this one, he gets to be kind of the classic cop, but a cop that's like a good person. It doesn't really lean into too many of the stereotypes of, he's a cop that plays by his own rules. While there's a flavor to that, but it's not really the cop that plays by his own rules. It's more so he's just a good person. His job is cop, and he's trying to do what's right. He's not playing by the politics of it. There's this girl that he meets in the process of this tragedy and realizes she doesn't have many people, so he's trying to help her. And he's just a decent guy, and he plays that so well. And he's like, even the way the third act plays out, if you haven't seen it, hopefully that some people go, I won't go into too many spoilers. The way that it plays out, the way that he interacts with the crow and everything, it's just like done so human. It's not, there's the heroic moments, but it's not too heroic. He's good at what he does, but he's not too good at what he does. There's consequence, it's just done just right. Like a character you really like, and Ernie Hudson pulls that sort of thing off so well. Another one in here, you got to talk, the main bad guy. I always forget this guy's name. He was in the movie Nope recently, but he was always playing the bad guy, but in a bunch of 90s movies that I watched all the time. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, he's in Alien Resurrection, and many others. I always for a long time kept forgetting that he was in this movie as the main villain, and just kind of great as this just evil jerk that wants to watch the world burn, and that's what he does so well. Anyway, we have a new Crow this weekend. I haven't seen it. I see it tonight. I actually, about 5 hours from now, I will be in the theater seated to watch the film, and I don't have high hopes. If you're curious about the Crow, I would watch this movie first. It's a 90s classic. It's one of the must-watch action movies of the 90s. I don't think it's for everybody. It is a niche film because it is such a distinct vibe to it. Even the soundtrack to it, that's the music that I listened to back in the day and continue to listen to this day. So there's so many things about it that take me to a time and a place that might not be for everyone. But it's a movie that the reason it might not be for you is because it is interesting, because it is distinct, because it does have a style. It does its own thing. It might be for you. It might not be for you. But that is, I think, when you have something with actual directorial stamp on it, an actual artistic representation. So I said, I don't want to misrepresent myself as saying that this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not really that to me. It is a movie I very much respect for being able to have such a distinct style that has been able to stand the test of time. Highly recommend you check it out if you like action movies, revenge films, or gothic films, anything in that vein. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you planning on checking out the remake this weekend? Let me know all that fun stuff, and keep talking movies and TV.